Greetings, everyone. We are live. How are you, gentlemen, doing today? Everything's fine.
Yep,
Despite
we're doing good.
despite the market corrections,
Morning.
right? We have some turbulence in the markets happening as we talk. I just got a notification here: Bitcoin dropping below $60,000. I think for the ones that are watching us, they know this is not a surprise. I think the four of us already mentioned in the past that a correction is expected, and there are multi-factors on this game. And today we're going to discuss a few topics here. So one of them being interoperability. I want to start with the more technical things, and we can leave the more circumstantial now topics for the end, such as the market correction. So we're going to touch on that more to the end of this video, of this live streaming. So I would like to address Versan because I know you spoke with Andy Shackman, that he's going very popular right now. I think everybody's talking about some of his comments, and I think a lot of what he has been speaking right now is thanks to the interview he has done with you guys, because you talk a lot, and you also mentioned XRP, and I really appreciate that. And I think MBridge is a hot topic right now. So I would like to know your topics on that, knowing that interoperability is one of the most essential, let's say, qualities of a blockchain right now for them to communicate with each other. I think it's essential for any blockchain protocol right now to have the capability to operate in an interoperable way. So what do you think about that? And we can start with Versan.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you guys. By the way, so far, so good. First of all, I do want to make it very clear that people really need to do research and on the news of what's going on the other side of the world. And that is because, again, Western media is so fixated on deceiving everybody. So people are not really able to see what's going on the other side of the world. And Project MBridge is basically a multi-central bank digital currency CBDC platform for the BRICS nations and the central banks within the BRICS nations and the commercial banks. It runs on distributed ledger technology, DLT. The underlying protocol, I believe, is Ripple, and that's because of the relationships they have with the institutions. It's interesting also, the Bank of International Settlements is actually leading this MBridge project while still working very closely with the IMF. So yesterday, Andy and I, we talked about, we were trying to discuss just basically seeing if there are any legit ties between BRICS nations, central banks, and Ripple, and trying to tie that into the MBridge. Now, as far as the technology, you did mention interoperability, and interoperability is key, something emphasized very commonly by the IMF. Interoperability is key because, again, it allows the technologies to communicate with each other seamlessly. And I think, again, that's where Ripple and the digital asset XRP, since they can essentially speak the same language and function through the same regulatory framework. And my last thoughts on MBridge is that it's really accelerating, and that is because of all the geopolitical tensions that we see overall. And then the agenda to undermine the US dollar dominance. And that is because the dollar is being used as a weapon, and it is perpetuating endless wars. Macro for you guys.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying, Versan. And I want to make something clear. It's my first time being a moderator. Usually, Versan is doing this job. So, guys, have a bit of patience. I will do my best here. So, now I think we can follow this order. I will pass the word to Vandell, and then we can go to David.
You're doing great.
Yeah, thanks. We will see at the end.
You're muted, Vandell. You're muted.
Sorry, guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. So we already know Saudi Arabia, has been exploring oil payments in, other currencies than the US dollar, and obviously has joined the BIS and MBridge project. So here's the interesting thing. What Versan was talking about is that bridge. The thing what I wanted to mention is that, speaking of the XRP ledger particularly, there's this misconception that I think a lot of people think that there is no private ledger. And Verson talked about this in the past, and so did you guys many times. But what I wanted to emphasize is that the reason there will be a private ledger is because banks, they value privacy a lot. And the thing is, their clients value that too. So they don't just have the private ledger for strictly just to keep transactions transparent, but it's to comply with regulations to gain a competitive advantage and pretty much manage risks as well. And the thing is, I just felt there was a lot of misconception around that, and I just wanted to put that out there because there is a private ledger. Now, whether the price of XRP will be the same or different from the private ledger than the public ledger, that's a whole other story. But this does tie into MBridge as well. But the thing is, there will be, they are using a private ledger. And the Bank of International Settlements with MBridge has announced that in the past, that they're working on a permissioned private blockchain. So I hope people can see the connection.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah. Now, in regards to MBridge, I really don't have much to say on that. I think,
David, I think. David, you're on mute.
Oh, okay.
And-
I thought Vandell was still talking. Sorry. So with respect to Project MBridge, we know that it started in 2021. And we're dealing with a situation where you have the Bank of International Settlements interacting with many of the BRICS countries, obviously, in the establishment of this system. What's interesting is Ripple is also a major partner with a lot of these BRICS nations. And one other major issue is Ripple is partnering with the BIS for the interoperability to solve that problem. And Vandell made a very good point about the private ledgers. Yes, there are private ledgers. That is what central bank digital currencies are. They are private ledgers. The native asset on those ledgers is not XRP. It is the native asset of those individual central bank nation states. You do have to have some interoperability between those, and that requires a bridge asset, ergo MBridge. Now, what MBridge is doing, I believe they haven't come out and specifically stated that there is a individual universal currency that will work to solve the interoperability issue, but we know for a fact that they are working with Ripple to solve that problem. And from what we've discovered thus far, a type of, XRP ledger system is absolutely being used. Let's remember this. Even Ripple themselves have come out and stated that when they are working with nation states to develop their central bank digital currencies, they're using private ledgers modeled after the XRP ledger. So that interoperability piece will be there. Now, something that I have wanted to bring out, and this is actually a perfect segue for me to present this, because we're dealing with central banks and the system of central banks. Now, the West is no stranger to what's going on over there with the BRICS nations. Now, something that I want to present and share and give some actual dates to is some legislation that I was aware of in Canada. And I'm going to tie that to how it works out with the development of the new system that they are moving us into. So what I would like to do here, I'm just going to share my screen. And I'm going to actually share a portion of my screen. And if you guys could just mount this so everybody could see it. And what I'm sharing with here, if we were to go up and see the title of this, it's the Bank Act. I am talking about the Bank Act. This is right off of Justice Canada. And I'm going down to section 21, sub 1, sunset provision. Now listen to how this reads. Subject to subsections 2 and 4, banks, now get this, banks shall not carry on business, and authorized foreign banks shall not carry on business in Canada, get this guys, after June 30th, 2025. Now these sunset provisions are put in there every 2 years.
Okay.
And this particular one is really, really interesting as to the date. Now that 2-year revision was just recent. Now listen, now I'm going to stop sharing that because I want to share another page. And this is what I'm wanting to share. And Versan is very well versed, I know, as he's done a lot of research on Basel III. Now, if you can mount this and you can see, listen to what this is, the final regulations for Basel III, and it's important to understand what these are. Basel III has been adopted by 28 central banks around the wide world, and it's a set of reform measures, as it says here, to improve regulation, supervision, and risk management in their international banking sector. Now, get this. This was in response to the 2008 and 9 financial crisis, and look at how much play they've been in place, but there's an end game to it. And the final regulations are set to be released with enough time to take effect on what? July 1st, 2025, the day after June 30th, 2025, when no banks and no foreign banks will be operating in Canada. Now, that to me is amazingly telling. And if you don't want to take our word for it, and I'm just going to stop sharing that, guys, I want to share a little clip that I have here. I'm going to open this up and share this little clip. It's only a 10-second long clip, but boy, I'll tell you what, does it ever speak volumes. And I'm just going to stop that, go there. Okay, now I'm going to share this clip, and let me just go here, and I'm going to click on that. I'm trying to navigate this because I'm not too okay. Here we go.
Okay.
So if you can mount this, if you can mount this so that everybody can see it, I'm going to play a 10-second clip. Mm-hmm. And the person speaking, most people are going to recognize just that fast. And he's in a position to know what the agenda truly is. Now, listen to what he says here. And it was when this whole deal was going down. Okay.
Let's turn it up maybe from the computer.
Okay, I'll redo that. I'll just put up my volume so that it's really nice and high. Okay.
Yeah, the volume from the video.
The video itself. Okay, I'll take it all the way up. Okay, let's play it one more time.
The pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset. This is our chance to accelerate our pre-pandemic efforts to reimagine economic systems that actually address global challenges.
Now, oh, sorry. Okay, did you guys get that?
Yep.
Did you were able to hear that? So
it's all part of the plan.
It's all part of the plan. Exactly. It is all part of the plan. And I'm just going to turn my volume back down a bit. So what we're seeing here is not something by happenstance, a knee-jerk reaction to anything. What we're watching with MBridge, what we're watching with the central banks, with Basel III and all of that, remember what Trudeau was saying there. Our pre-pandemic efforts, we can accelerate those efforts. Now, the thing is, a lot of people say never let a good crisis go to waste. Well, how about never let a manufactured crisis go to waste so that they can literally manufacture an environment so they can present and push forward their agenda? That is exactly what I see going on. MBridge is certainly a part of that. We know this consolidation and collaboration with the BRICS nations and the advancement of that. And we're seeing the West has a similar situation going on, and it is going to become seamless. I literally believe you're going to watch these two ends meet one way or another.
Yep.
That's what I got to say for that.
100%. And thank you for sharing that with us, by the way. Edo, I was just telling you in the private chat, I think this really ties us into gold. So you know what? Maybe we should talk about gold and we can come back to the market and touch on some other things. Vandell.
I just want to make a quick comment. He mentioned something like pre-pandemic, right? And guys, there's something very interesting, and you can, after we finish the live streaming, for the ones that are watching us, you can do an experiment. That might sound crazy, right? But if you go on Google and you actually type 2024, I'm not sure if you guys have seen it, but you type images, it's going to pop a lot of happy images of calendar and stuff. If you go to 2025 on Google, it's all about lockdowns. It's all about war and destruction. I mean, they just giving you the things in plain sight. You know how the elites used to operate. they usually tell us in advance what are their plans, and they have done the same thing with I think it was called, if someone can refresh my mind, but before the pandemic, they did an experiment where they call it Event 201, right? And they did a scenario where there would be a pandemic and precisely a coronavirus pandemic just a couple of months before the actual pandemic. And they also stated that that would all start in China. So I think that's very interesting. Just to make some comments on what David has shown.
If I may just throw something in there. Another experiment was done after that that had to do with a cyber attack on a massive global level. And now we're hearing about, the Federal Reserve getting hacked. Come on.
Yeah, they've been running simulations for over 2 years now.
Yeah.
And major corporations have been participating in it for the cyber attack.
And the cyber attack one was actually orchestrated by the World Economic Forum, and there was Klaus Schwab. So it's all tied together. And if you want to kindly quickly shift back to the gold, I think it's very relevant that there has been some unfoldings in BRICS in the last week, and I think that's very tied to gold as well, but not only to gold, also to oil. So we had just 2 days ago a new member applied to join BRICS, and that happens to be Venezuela, which together with Saudi Arabia, both of these countries hold the 2 largest reserves of oil. Of course, that is an issue for Venezuela because they don't have the actual infrastructure to actually manufacture this oil. So by the time we talk now, they still have to import some gold from external countries, including from the United States. But I think that might be a major transformation as the BRICS is actually expanding. And by the time we talk today, they have 2 of the largest war arsenals, being Russia and China. And now it's actually advancing also in the oil and perhaps even in the gold reserves, as both nations were accumulating large sums of gold. So what do you think of that? Can we start with Versan?
I'm just going to put a macro thought into this, is that I think I think this new world order, or whatever you want to call it, is actually being orchestrated by the BRICS nations. And I think they're just challenging the dominance of the US dollar. It's crazy, guys. If you look at just the actions of the US and what we're doing here, it's almost like our leaders are committing suicide. These are people that are selfish, greedy, and corrupt leaders. And what we're seeing is just the decline of leadership and integrity and morals in the U.S. And I'm telling you guys, it's no surprise. But I think that the future of the world is very complex. Where this is all going, and I don't know how we're going to get out of it, the U.S., but I think we're in big trouble here, guys. This is something like Andy and I even talked about extensively. People really need to just wake up. I don't have a lot of thoughts on the BRICS nations at this moment. All I know is that they're expanding, and I really believe that they're going to be the ones behind the new monetary system. Whether this is intentional or not is a whole different story, but it seems intentional. So I'll let you guys take the conversation there. And when we get back to gold, I have some thoughts about that.
Thanks for sharing, Versan. Vandell, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say that whatever the BRICS is working on, their agenda, as well as the US's agenda, they ultimately lead to the same outcome. Okay, that's what's going on. The end goal is tokenization. Okay, the end goal is more control, more capital control, more restrictions. That's the end goal. And the tool that they're going to use to get there will be tokenization. So regardless what the left is believing or the right is believing, or what the West is doing, or versus the BRICS and other nations, they ultimately lead to the same outcome. And people need to understand that. They're just taking different paths to get there. That's the truth. regardless how you want to word it and put it, that's how it's going to end up. It's heading towards the same outcome ultimately. Now back to gold. First of all, Venezuela is actually one of the richest countries in the world because of its oil and natural resources, minerals. Just wanted to throw that out there. But specifically on gold, so I found this yesterday. Well, found this this morning, and posted it. So this is the proof that the gold reevaluation. This is even more confirmation that there's a very high probability they're going to reevaluate the price of gold. We already know this. We've been saying this for a long time. But for anybody that was questioning it or needed proof and what's your source, it's right here on the federal government's website. So the federalreserve.gov, okay? And I posted it today on Twitter. And the financial accounting manual for Federal Reserve banks. This is their financial accounting manual. It's public information. You can Google it. You can find it
Vandell,
online.
sorry, if you want to share your screen, you can actually go ahead. I think that would be a very interesting topic here.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So, okay. Let me.
Do you have it ready?
Yep, it's ready.
Okay.
Okay. So, share screen. Okay. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Here, I'll add it to the stage. There we go. We can see it.
Okay. So this is the financial accounting manual for the Federal Reserve banks, okay? This is public information. This is on the federalreserve.gov website, and this is their PDF. It's quite a few pages, but on page 13 right here, okay? So it's called Gold Certificate Account. Section 2.10, page 13. So I'm going to zoom in here, okay? Look at this. It says also, whenever the official price of gold is changed, Treasury adjusts the account and simultaneously the deposit account. This is telling you right here in this section that when they do change the gold price, they're saying they will and they can. So that's your proof right there.
Yeah. Yeah, you make a good point, you know. And if I may add a little bit, it's just that regarding a gold reevaluation, this is something, you know, we've talked about for many years now. And also many experts out there have even discussed this. But you have to understand that central banks have always had this tool in their arsenal, but it seems like a last resort measure to balance their budgets and deficits. So with the debt being so unsustainable, resetting the gold price to 20,000 an ounce or even a higher could certainly be a solution to shrink the debt. But we've even spoken to experts out there who have done their math and other industry experts who've done calculations, and it suggests the price could go as high as $85,000 an ounce. And that, again, would not be surprising given basically the disparity about what's happening between the amount of physical gold and then the paper gold that supposedly exists, right? And this is something also Andy was mentioning yesterday, is that price discovery will actually happen when there's the demand for the physical ownership of that gold. So that's something we just need to bear in mind, you know, and it could certainly help reduce the deficit and the debt. And then I think also where blockchain converges with all of this, that's going to play a crucial role too. So as we move towards digital money and digital economy, the intersection of gold and digital currency, that's really where the convergence really matters, basically. And this is, again, why I tell people always own physical gold. You know, gold and silver is always going to be real currency, real money. I think everything else is just debt and then digits on a screen.
Especially in this world of tokenization that we are.
Guys hear me?
Yeah. And David, would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I
right?
think that gold has traditionally been obviously a store of value for thousands upon thousands of years. It certainly still is today. The issue is when we are moving into this, and Vandell is absolutely right. I mean, if you think that the governments have not been able to manipulate and control the gold price when they want and how they want, then you're not really a student of history, because let's remember, between the 1930s to the 1970s, the US government kept the spot price of an ounce of gold in between $30 and $40 for that entire time, decades upon decades upon decades. Now, do you think the physical demand for it was really reduced? No, it was a controlled and manipulated price, and they are still doing it. It's just not the way in which we thought of how they're doing it. And in fact, JP Morgan themselves got fined massively for being caught, manipulating the silver market. And of course, to them, that is just a cost of doing business, let's be honest. And so we're literally watching a system implode on itself. I agree with Verson. Anybody else witnessing this from the outside would consider these governments are committing financial suicide for their citizens, because they're putting their citizens at absolute risk in an amazing, amazing way. And we're watching, we all see it, the purchasing power of our dollars literally being destroyed right in front of our very eyes. And what other thing are they moving us forward to from in a geopolitical way? Well, they're ratcheting up this entire war machine, both in the Middle East and of course in Eastern Europe. You got all of these nations that had a long pause on selective service or the draft that are bringing it in. Here in the United States, they are going to propose that not only young men, but young women have to sign up, for the selective service as well. And when I think about that, it kind of makes my stomach turn, because how many times have they pushed us into some sort of a global conflict where you have watched many, many young lives being absolute cannon fodder to forward their agendas. My gut tells me that's what they're going to move us into. It would not surprise me if by the end of this year, you're going to watch a lot of things, transpire on that end of it. It's not going to be just dragged out. They have an agenda. They are going to fight this tooth and nail. They are going to bring it to pass. And, I know a lot of times we think, oh, this is conspiracy. Well, you're watching conspiracy happen right before your very eyes. And if you are not willing to connect the dots, you are literally living in willful ignorance. I genuinely believe that, because the evidence is all around you. And I think it is very frightening to have to digest this evidence, but we have to do it if we're going to be prepared and ready ourselves. There is no reason for any of us to become victims in this situation. We can take the information we know now and we can put ourselves in a position to at least preserve ourselves and at least minimize the impact of what's coming, because what's coming is going to be, in my estimation, absolutely catastrophic when this whole system completely implodes. And definitely, I think gold revaluation is on the table, 100%.
Yeah, and truth is
100%. Can I also add something real quick? It's just, well, yeah, good point. But is also the M2 money supply that confirms that central banks are going to print more money, obviously, aggressively print more money, inflate the currency to unprecedented levels, and that's going to just make them stronger. And again, they're doing this to buy up all the debt, buy up all these suppressed assets, own everything, consolidation, and so forth. But everything we see happening with the central banks, it also confirms that we're at the brink of war for some reason, right? And at the same time, countries are also dumping the US dollar. So loss of confidence in the American currency. Governments seem to be ignoring the problems and everything like that. And I think, it's just accelerating. So you have to be prepared. But again, it's like the US is doing this. It's a self-inflicted wound. It's so obvious at this point. So do what you can to prepare, I guess.
It's with intention. You cannot deny that it's with intention. I mean, I think any rational thinking person would consider, why on earth would you put yourself or your citizenry in such a vulnerable situation the way in which you are? Look, every three months, they're printing another $1 trillion. Now, that's an absolute fact. You can go to the Federal Reserve's website. You can see this themselves. So you're talking, what, $4 trillion in just 1 year? I mean, trillion. Now, to get a grasp of this, and I mentioned this on my coffee chat this morning, back when Reagan was president, and I mean, for my age, I'm 56. It's really not that long ago to think about this. The U.S. debt was under $1 trillion, under $1 trillion. Now we're adding $4 trillion a year. Come on. There's no other explanation other than they are literally wanting to destroy the current system.
And they're going to take advantage of it at the same time and benefit their own interests and their own money. I mean, that's pretty much what they're doing. Like you said, they never let a crisis go to waste, a manufactured crisis.
When you have a currency that you take 80% of the circulating supply has been printed in the last 36 months, that's what I called a self-orchestrated collapse. I think the only thing that still used to justify was the demand for the petrodollar, but now we have all these BRICS nations with the alliance that is growing by each day, and there's this whole change of paradigm, so we can't even compare to some of the arguments pro the US dollar. The main argument was actually the demand for the petrodollar, and that's changing very quickly. Now, if you guys allow me to jump in the market circumstances right now, I think that's very relevant. I know I have a lot of people that perhaps are watching their bags to go down and they're getting concerned. And I want to start making some comments here. We have to understand that markets in general are rigged. Not only the crypto markets, gold, silver, stock market. It's designed to make retail investors to lose. Just today, we had over 3,000 long positions liquidated. I'm talking only about Bybit, which is one small crypto exchange, and that results in millions of dollars in losses for retail investors. Do you guys think that's a coincidence that they can drop the price in 1 minute like that? Let's be honest. These people are using trading boots. That's not natural circumstances of the market. There are insiders, there are trading boots, algorithm trading that is actually manipulating the prices. Now, why I'm telling you guys is that you have to focus on the long term, not on the short term price fluctuations. I have said, Versan and I had a live a couple of months ago when Bitcoin was above $70,000, and 99% of Twitter or influencers or content creators, whatever you want to call them, especially the ones that do technical analysis, and they were giving Bitcoin to 100,000 as something that would happen overnight, in the next week, in the next month. And I say, guys, calm down. I mean, if you look for some of the things that they were overlooking, such as the liquidity, if we compare 2021, that was the previous all-time high, and 2024, which Bitcoin did a new all-time high. And as I said this in the last time, if we took inflation on the equation, then it's kind of, we can have second thoughts about, did Bitcoin really hit a new all-time high? But the point I'm trying to make here is, if you look for the liquidity now, it's actually less than half what it used to be in the previous all-time high. And that really communicates that price changes are actually brutal. You can have a massive amount of liquidations, because low liquidity in the markets actually means that there is no price volume to sustain any selling action. So what we are watching today, it's a massive liquidation, and who's paying the price? Retail investors. So that's why I say you have to be very careful when trading, and that's why I say, if you are looking for the long term, you are not really concerned about a 15-20% drop in the price, but that's the importance of have a strategy, that you are not responding just to market fluctuations. I have my bags. When 2-3 months ago, I changed my positions. I sold a few coins that I hold, and I take this solid plan that right now I'm not even watching my wallet. For me, it doesn't really change. I think we have to be here for the long term. And for me, 2025 is going to be full of action.
Yeah, that's right. It's going to be 2025. Our message has been the same. You
And
know, but also real quick, Vandell, it's just that like you said, Edo, everything is rigged. This is something I continuously emphasize. I don't even watch technical traders because the market is rigged, and it's even more rigged today than it was back then, because everything now depends on central banks coming in and buying up all the debt. So there's a mechanism that you can truly follow and have a nice exit strategy with this and play the game like they do, right? But it's not surprising, because also at the same time the world is going through all these significant changes, and that means there's going to be volatility between now and the rest of the year. So don't be surprised if the markets go up 20% or come down even 40%. This is something that is to be expected in this environment. So personally, I don't even look at these things. I just continue to dollar cost average every month. I'm paying myself in precious metals, food, water, supplies, things like that. And at the same time, gold and silver. So I'm continuously playing my game. Haven't changed anything about my strategy, guys. So.
Thanks for that,
Yeah.
Versan. Vandell, some thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with Versan. We have a very our investment thesis is built around a lot of the same components and factors, and understanding that, of course, gives us all an edge. We know it's artificially inflated, it's manipulated. Now, the thing is about the liquidation taking place with the Bitcoin dump that's been happening today. So approximately, what is it, $9 billion in Bitcoin is being dumped by Mt. Gox. What they're doing is obviously they're trying to liquidate as much as they can. But as soon as that part is done, that's when they're going to artificially inflate it back up again. So what's going to happen is they're pulling liquidity out of the market. They're liquidating a lot of these traders, and then they're going to inject more liquidity into the market to take it back up. And this is just one stage within the market cycle. We have the first stage, where everybody thinks, a few wise people think, okay, there's room for the market to go up. And then you have even more people in the second stage that think, okay, the market is going to kind of stay here. It's probably going to go up a little, and they get in a later time, and they'll probably do okay. They won't get wrecked. And then you have the 99% of the people, which is the third stage within the bull market, where 99% of the people are getting in pretty much at the top because they think it's going to go on forever, and they're pretty much setting themselves up for substantial loss, in my opinion. But the way I see it right now is this is just a liquidation. The market makers are doing this so that they can take as many people out as they can, suck as much money out of them, and dry them up. And it's just the cycle is going to continue. Just watch and see. They're going to issue more debt. They're going to pump more liquidity in the system, and ultimately, that's the only thing that drives these markets until utility kicks in. And here's the thing. When utility does kick in, it's still the underlying driver is liquidity, because the utility will invite more liquidity into the system ultimately. But right now it's driven by liquidity, and we're just in the market cycle stages. That's it. But yeah, most people are getting wrecked because they're over leveraged. They're using leverage. They're following a bunch of technical analysts and traders. And, technical analysis can give you an edge in the short term, but it can't take into account the fundamentals, which ultimately drives the market long term. It's a secular trending market.
Very good point. Nicely said, Vandell. Yeah. David.
So when I look at these markets,
hear your thoughts.
A lot of people in these markets, interestingly enough, if they really believe that retail is pushing this market, when you're looking at most people, most retail traders, you're talking 100, maybe a few thousand, this and that, most of them, majority of them. And they're hurting to do that. They're sacrificing to be able to do that. Yet you're watching billions and billions of dollars being traded daily. I mean, that's a pretty good indicator that it's the institutional that are controlling this. 100%. And to think that these markets are not manipulated, come on. We have watched it happen over and over and over again. And Edo made a great point about the number of people being literally liquidated. Do you realize most of these exchanges that a lot of retail traders trade on, they'll allow 100x leverage. Now that is insane. You may as well be at the casino. In fact, your odds might be better in the casino than they would be in this market, because you're practically guaranteed that they see that and they are not going to expose themselves to that kind of risk, of these exchanges that are, by the way, are mostly controlled by institutions, 100%. And another thing to consider, there's a lot of folks out there. You have to remember that these players have been in these markets and markets like these for time and memorial. Don't you think that they don't know the psychology of the market? In fact, they've written the book on it, and they can absolutely sway the majority. We know from being experienced in this space ourselves that most of the buying from retail comes in when they're FOMOing at the absolute top. But where are fortunes made? Fortunes are made at the absolute bottom, when you are literally being fudded out of it like absolute crazy, made to believe that, oh my gosh, it's gonna go to zero, it's never gonna recover, on and on and on. We have just heard it over and over again. Amazingly enough, that psychology works every single time. And people come out and they'll criticize us for offering individuals to take financial coaching. Way different than financial advice. It's to understand the psychology of these markets, to know what their own risk tolerance is, to truly understand what it means to be an investor. Most folks, when they've heard about this space, is because someone they heard it from a guy at work or a brother-in-law. They throw a few bucks at it. Few hundred, few $1,000s, never have it invested in their life. And then they're expecting, it should turn around within 3 months. And the first time that they see that their investment has dropped 10%, they get absolutely terrified. Boom, they're out. They don't know anything about what it is to be an investor. And really, they look at it like they're throwing chips on a table. And the reality is this: the only way to beat them at their game is not to follow their advice, but to watch their behavior. Watch their behavior. Develop the skills necessary to identify this kind of stuff. People will spend countless, they'll get into a hobby like, fishing, and they will learn everything they possibly can about what, the seasons to go fishing, what the bait is, what lures to use, everything, so they can be a successful, sport fisherman. And then they'll boast with their big fat catch and the whole bit, and it's great, and they love it. Won't invest when it comes to their money, will not invest just a few $100 to really educate themselves about what it means to be an investor. And it's insane. It's insane. But that's how it works. It works that way every single time. We have all been there to see it. And it just over and over and over again. It never ceases to amaze me. But I do believe for every bull market, there has been a bear market. Well, for every bear market, there is a bull market, and a bull market will come. And get this, guys, we are seeing a massive disconnect from the economy and the market. We have been seeing that. So the economy could be literally crumbling right in front of our faces, and the markets can take off like crazy. And when this was going down, we all saw that, because around the wide world, no manufacturing, no shipping, no service business, literally people sent from home, all banging their pots and pans while they're being crushed financially. And the market took off in one of the biggest secular bull runs the world has ever seen between 2020 and 2021. And what are we getting? We're getting round two. Federal Reserve, FDIC, sorry, not Federal Reserve, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation has literally come out and said 215 regional banks are on the absolute verge of collapse. And they won't tell you which 215 they are, because the FDIC themselves is afraid of a bank run. Now that right there should tell you absolute volumes, I'll tell you what.
Totally agree with you, David. And if for me, there is one thing more shocking than XRP below 50 cents, I'm going to tell you guys what it is. XLM is trading. I mean, it's just ridiculous. When you see all of these assets, HBAR, XRP, XLM, XDC, and you just see that they are extremely undervalued. right now. For me, it's just a time for do more shopping. I have some capital that I set aside, and for me, every time there is such a dip, which is not even so big, I'm adding more for my positions because I'm confident that in the long term, these assets, as Versan said one time, and I always repeat this sentence, you are not just buying digital assets. You are literally buying a piece of the infrastructure of the financial system. And that's not me saying, that's the documents, that's the word of the World Bank, the Bank of International Settlements, the IMF. So it's all based on research. And that's why, especially people who are in crypto, the ones that are not doing leverage trading, but the ones that are fundamental investors, and I think that's the case for the four of us here. When there is a drop like today, like this week, let's say, we just see like a 10% drop in the week, that doesn't even make any effect. I mean, for the emotions, it's just like a neutral for me, you know?
Yeah.
I agree.
Can I put something in there? So you made a very, this is not retail markets moving anything. We talked about this earlier this morning too. Retail markets are not moving. I'm sorry, retail investors, retail money is not moving the markets at all. This is all institutions. They're the only ones who can move the market. And what I think this is going to eventually come down to, and I've been doing some other research into more macro about XRP and its place in the global economy. And I'm convinced at this point, I talked about this on Twitter, is that this is a geopolitical issue at this point. And I think it's interesting because, you know, we always believe that the central banks are buying up all the debt. I even talk about this quite often with you guys, right? That the Fed is buying up all the debt. And I'm starting to speculate and wonder, like, is it possible that the IMF is buying up all the debt? And it's a very interesting speculation because there's an article I'm going to be covering this week from the IMF. And the IMF has approved very quietly without anybody knowing. It just went right under the radar. They've approved for special ESDRs, multiple ESDRs. And I find that very interesting. And at the same time, all this debt buying is happening all across the world. Now, where am I going with this? And again, look at this from a big picture, is that I think the IMF, and we know the IMF has been working with Ripple. They've been working with Stellar from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is I think the powers that be, to some degree, we can all agree on this, is that the powers that be, like the IMF, the Bank of International Settlements, the World Bank, World Gold Council, some of the bigger institutions and other financial dynasties, I think they're going to use these two technologies, interestingly. XRP at a very high price to settle all the debt if they wanted to. Some would call this the debt jubilee or whatever. And then, of course, to usher in that new monetary system, with XLM being used as their main selling point is to bank the unbanked. And I think what we're seeing happening in the world in this massive consolidation phase is the institutions that are banking earlier with the cyber threat, and just how this all generally ties into the geopolitical landscape, is that they're looking for an enemy to point the finger at to default on that debt, or create a situation where they are forced to default and come out with the ESDR. So, and this is again a problem reaction solution, ultimately leading to a scenario where it's very possible that the IMF actually controls all the money in the world. And some of these digital assets play a role in it. So I'm just trying to speculate, guys, on the bigger picture here. And it's pretty creepy. But I found some documents that I'm going to be reporting on this week from the IMF and the ESDR. So,
can I tag along on that for a quick second? Because
please,
I think
I don't want to be alone in this, guys.
Versan is right over the target, and I'm going to share my screen because I think a lot of folks don't truly understand the purpose and the plan behind special drawing rights. Because especially now this is Investopedia and this is in special drawing rights here. Do you guys see my screen here?
Yeah.
Okay,
There we go,
so
sir.
this was it says right here they were created in 1969. It operates as a supplement to existing money reserves of member countries. And when you get to the key takeaways, they're artificial currency, and it's used for internal accounting purposes, but they can be used to exchange for other currencies, the repayment of loans, payment obligations, pledges, payment of interest on loans, or payment for increased in quota amounts. And it's so vitally important to understand this because right here, the special drawing right was formed with a vision of becoming a major element of international reserves, bingo, with gold and reserve currencies forming a minor incremental component of such reserves. They are going to back it. They are going to back these things by commodities, and they're going to be issuing them as an international form of currency. I genuinely 100% believe that. And a lot of people do not understand what electronic special drawing rights are, but they're going to be built on distributed ledger technology. It's going to have massive, massive impacts. Why? Because right now we're watching a absolute decimation of the current world reserve currency, aren't we? It's the US dollar, petrodollar. I don't believe for 1 second that the next world reserve currency that's going to be accepted is going to be singled out for one particular nation. I believe it's going to be agnostic. I believe it's going to be international. And I believe it's going to be absolutely distributed ledger technology based. Why? Because we're dealing with trustless systems where we're not trusting one another, but we're trusting the technology. And because this current system is based on the confidence people give to the economy, because nothing is backing any of these fiat currencies, right? Not gold, not any type of commodity. When all of this blows to pieces, they are going to have to get the public trust back one way or another into these currencies. What do you think they're going to use to do that? They're going to use commodities, gold, silver, oil, and other things that people know have intrinsic value. That's how they're going to get them to trust it. And then it's going to be agnostic. That's at least, and I think Versan is right over the target with that.
And the value of SDRs, of an SDR, is connected to a basket of currencies. That's how it works.
Yep. Very good point. And you know what? Just to add on, guys, the dollar functioned as a reserve currency settlement mechanism where the dollar to cross border to transact and do trade. As the dollar is fading away, you can now put all the pieces together and begin to see the bigger picture that, oh, well, if XRP can function as a global reserve currency, eliminate the dollar, coexist with it, then there you go. It makes so much more sense. And this is why I think the Ripple lawsuit is still going on, because it's a geopolitical issue at this point, because it challenges the dollar, the dominance of it. So it's not an accident. And then a lot of these technologies are also complementary. That's your reset right there, right?
Ergo WAR.
I think it's also possible for the International Monetary Fund to acquire a large sum of the escrow.
Of course.
XRP.
Yes.
That's where we think it's going. Ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know if it would be
the escrow. Yeah, it's just the escrow. The rest of it, it hasn't been revealed yet to what it's there for, but I think we understand what it's there for. And just as you described, Vandell, yes, it's going to be allocated for specific reasons when the time is there. But in the meantime, it's just there to foster inclusion, liquidity, to further the adoption of it, which is already happening. So, unless you guys have something else you'd like to add to this, I think now we can.
Which will lead to supply shock. Go ahead.
I have said already that, and don't take this as facts, but as speculation of myself, that my opinion, the escrow already is no longer in possession of Ripple. I do firmly believe that the escrow belongs to some key institution like the Bank of International Settlements, the IMF, perhaps the US Treasury. And I have some reasons to say that. However, I don't have a document to really prove it, but I had spoken privately to some people, and it has been told offline, off topics, but there is a great chance that the escrow is there and it's no longer in possession of Ripple. So you don't see other assets having the same asset distribution, at least 50% locked in escrow. So there is a reason why there is so many XRPs locked there.
One thing also to mention about it is a lot of people think 100 billion XRP, but what they don't realize is the amount that is in circulation right now, okay, 60 billion. Do you realize the percentage of that is held by whale wallets that are not, I mean, the amount that retail holds is absolutely minuscule in comparison to what these institutions hold and the amount locked in escrow. XRP could become very, very scarce very, very fast. Absolutely, if they flip.
I agree. Yes,
there will be a liquidity shock.
100%. You know, well, that's what we were talking about so many times. And my God, man, I hate having to like be repetitious, but this is what I've said many times: is that the price will have to be very damn high for it to function the way it's designed to function. What is interesting about it is that when you look at 100 billion XRP, that is not anything compared to what the value, you know, it's not recognized yet, but they know exactly what it's designed to do. So the price will have to be at a very high price. And I promise you guys, the IMF is going to be interceding in all of this when the time for the bubble to burst. Like I said in the beginning, they're going to inflate to consolidate. But when the time comes, the central banks, like Gareth Soloway said, they won't be able to fix the problem. So typically, who steps in? It's usually the IMF. They come in like the mafia, right? And they could use these two technologies to say, hey, well, we're going to come in and bail out the whole world, make all the central banks whole. But for that to happen, XRP has, is not enough to meet the demand that is now needed.
And I would just like to add to what Versan said there. Who's being made whole? The central banks are being made whole. Yeah. You and I aren't being made whole. You know what we're promised? Oh, debt forgiveness. But with this whole Jassara debt forgiveness, do you think there's not going to be a price tag associated with that?
You're
Absolutely, right. 100%. It's indentured servitude, another word for slavery to this central bank system. And this is where you have the opportunity right now, the way, in my estimation, that you could put yourself in a position where a very small, position could literally be the very thing that saves you down the road. Look at with gold. Oftentimes you'll hear people say, well, 5% of your net worth should be in gold. Why? But that, as an anchor, because that 5% could literally save you from the loss of the 95%. That's why. And so this is where I see these digital assets being literally a type of flight to safety in this absolute collapse that's totally coming for sure.
Can I add something to your point? So first of all, what Versan said, how we talk about the escrow, and when we talk about XRP and the supply, we always refer to 100 billion, just to quantify things. But the truth is, I think that's 100% a waste of energy, because the 100 billion, out of half of that, not even that is going to get back onto the open market. Okay. So it's just a waste to even talk about the 100 billion. If we're going to talk about XRP, we should just talk about what's already on the market, not the escrow, because that's not coming back to the market. So why are people talking about it? What do you think? They're going to put it back on the market, and make everybody whole? Like you said, they're not making anybody whole. They're going to make you half, and they're going to make the banks whole, and you're going to get less than half. So you're going to be a fraction of that. You're going to get poorer. And like you said, I compare it to an insurance policy. People have life insurance. People have renter's insurance, house insurance, yard insurance, car insurance, but they won't insure their financial sovereignty and potentially catastrophic economic collapse, which is very obvious at this point. If anybody has a brain, is paying attention. I mean, more people are paying attention to Kim Kardashian and Haka Yuka and all this stupid shit. But the world is collapsing, literally. And I think this is a good thing that people know about it. I don't see it as a negative, condescending topic or what's the word? Just a negative in nature. I see it as a positive thing, because if you have this information, at least you can make decisions that could, better your financial situation or potentially protect you and your family. But I agree with you, David. This is like an insurance policy. I mean, at least get a few digital assets in your portfolio.
Well, yeah, XRP is life insurance at this point. XRP is life insurance at this point.
If you have in cold wallets, please.
Anyway,
good point, Edo. Make sure that you got it where you can keep it, and because they will take it if they can take it. As simple as that.
Yeah.
Just imagine XRP is taking off, and some exchanges collapse. I'm sure they have these cards to play. So please, guys, cold wallets is a must. Don't leave your exchange on Binance, Crypto.com. I don't care which exchange. You need to have your private keys, please.
Very good point, Edo. Very good point. And they could blame it on a cyber attack, since that's a narrative that they seem to be building up recently. And as David said, it's taking place within the government even,
Well, just to add on to that, I mean, here we're getting this notification.
If I can also add something.
Oh, go ahead,
Sorry, guys. I'll keep it short. Some people have asked me, what do I think about keeping, say very simply, like here you are trying to hedge from financial institutions while transacting in financial institutions. So it's kind of a conflict of interest. What I recommend is for everyone to just take their digital assets and put them on cold storage. Teach yourself custody. I think that's important. Hello.
Yes. Go ahead.
It is important, absolutely important. And I guess for me, when I take a look at these networks that we're talking about right now, do you have a bad connection there, Versam? Were you finished? I thought he was finished. Was he not finished?
Going on here, guys? It's just, I might as well tune out. Something's wrong with the Wi-Fi here, I guess. That hasn't happened before, so
yeah.
I'll let you guys go. Okay.
I think we're at an hour.
I'm gonna sign off.
Okay.
We're at an hour.
Yeah, we'll give our final thoughts. I think overall, look, we know what's coming. We can see what's coming. And, if you're going to be on top of it, if you want to protect your family and those kind of things, I think you need to pay attention, get out there. Like Versan was saying, like Vandell, Edo was saying, we need to be ready, prepared, research it. And, that's the bottom line. And at the end of the day, there's really, it's like the wheels are so in motion that there's no stopping it at this point. That's my last comment there.
I'm looking at the comments. Somebody says his Wi-Fi sucks ass. That's so funny.
But that's very silly because we have the best Wi-Fi here. I pay top dollar for my Wi-Fi. All right, I'm getting off, guys. Okay, take care.
See you, Versan.
Edo, David. I think. What do you think?
Usually it's my Wi-Fi. So unfortunately today it was Versan's Wi-Fi. But just some final thoughts, guys. First, I see some comments that people just joined the live streaming. So if you want to see the repetition, you can just go to Black Swan YouTube channel, the section live, and you can watch it from the beginning. It's also available on my Twitter page. And despite the fact that markets are down today, just look for the big picture. Focus on the long-term investments. We have almost 4,000 people watching live right now. So I'm glad that as the live streamings are evolving, we're getting more and more views and the message is getting spread out. So thank you everyone for your kindness. I think we're gonna see you guys next Monday. Is there something, Vandell and David, you want to add some final thoughts on that?
Go ahead, David.
Well, the last final point I would add is something big in the news today is, of course, this whole Federal Reserve hack, and that they're being extorted, and that 33 terabytes of information has gotten out there, which is quite amazing considering that, you as a US citizen, can't even see the budgeting books of the Federal Reserve. I mean, this is like national security. I mean, you would think the NSA, the CIA, they'd be all over this like a bad habit. To me, this doesn't pass the smell test. I don't know. I just think something's going on. And they might be able to use it to blame it for something else, but there is no way that these are closed network systems. That kind of information wouldn't be available, in my estimation, in a truly hardened security system like the Federal Reserve. Just from my past government experience. So something's going on.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I definitely, most likely something is happening. But they like to roll these things out very gradually, little by little. It's just how they operate. But yeah, my final thoughts is I'm glad we could have this conversation, you guys. You guys are like my brothers. I think this is fantastic. Thank you for everybody watching and tuning in out there. Again, we just try to reiterate the information to give people an edge, an advantage. We all have different experiences, different opinions, but at the end of the day, we're all here to support each other. And I think having information and knowing what's going on can give you an advantage, and it's much better than not knowing what's happening in the world.
Great final message. I think after this one we can close. So yeah, thank you everyone for your comments, for your patience. Sometimes we have Wi-Fi problems, sometimes microphones, these things are like this. Just trying to improve by each day. So see you guys next Monday. Thank you, David. Thank you, Vandell. And wish everyone a great day ahead. For me, it's actually night. It's 9:30 p.m. here, but I know you guys are early. One day I want to do the reverse, actually. I want to start when it's morning for me so I can be fresh, not when it's the end of the day, and I have already so much work that I did in the afternoon. Anyways, thank you, everyone, and gonna see you guys soon.
Thank you.